I'm New York State Senator Jake Ashby, ranking member on the Veterans Committee in the Senate, and I'm joined here by my colleagues today. I want to thank them for coming out in support of this issue, and it's really pretty simple. Every year, there's 34 tax checkoffs that you can donate to. According to a recent comptroller's audit, 2/3 of the funds have not been released, and we are here to talk about 4 of them today. If you look at these different types of organizations and funds on here for veterans, you realize that our priorities are out of whack. How could we expect to handle a $240+ billion budget and not deliver on an annual basis these donated funds that are required by law, by the way? By law, annually, they need to be dispersed. And according to this office, the comptroller's audit, it hasn't been dispersed in at least 6 years. Could be more than that. It only went back 6 years. Magically, seemingly, we did get correspondence from the department yesterday, not referencing 3 out of the 4 of these funds, but saying that the money is now going to start to flow. Well, this is not acceptable. The funds have needed to flow for the last 6 years, maybe more than that, and they haven't been. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about veterans' housing. We're talking about homeless veterans. We're talking about military families that are struggling financially, and military families who have soldiers, Marines, airmen who've been wounded or killed in action. That's where these funds go, and they haven't been dispersed. So I know that in the context of a $240+ billion budget, $3.5 million may seem small, but think about the people where this funds go to. Think about them, the expectation that New York State is there to take care of them. Your donations are there for them. And what are we doing about it? They're just sitting there. It's unconscionable. And I know we use this term a lot here in the state. And I know that it's budget season, and a lot of people come up here and they're advocating for funds, which is appropriate. These funds have already been allocated. They've been donated. They're already there. Why are they not being released? These are the questions that we are after today. These families deserve answers, and I'm happy to be joined by so many of my colleagues today. I'd like to introduce the chair of the Senate Veterans Committee, Jessica Scarcella-Spanton.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Scarcella-Spanton. I represent Staten Island and Southern Brooklyn, but most importantly, I come from a military family. Hearing that these funds that New Yorkers so generously donated have not been released in 6 years, and I'd like to note before our time in the Senate, was just completely and totally unacceptable to me. We saw the comptroller's report, and we see that military families are going without support, that homeless veterans are going without support, that veteran cemeteries are going without support. How is this acceptable when $3.5 million, that again, the money is sitting there, has not been spent? And $3.5 million might not sound like a lot in the context of this budget, but it's a lot to those organizations that provide that support. I can tell you firsthand that we deal with veterans having homelessness issues all the time in our district. We have to beg, borrow, and steal, talk to every organization across our district to make sure that they're able to get housing. It's unacceptable, and I know that we did get a response last night, but there's still a lot of questions that are left unanswered as to why in 6 years, and that's just as far back as the report dates, these funds have not been dispersed. We host a monthly meeting with DVS. We are on top of these issues on a regular basis, both myself and Senator Ashby. We're working together to try to get this done, to right this wrong, and to make sure that not another day, not another month, not another year goes by that these funds that New Yorkers have generously donated are not dispersed again. Thank you. And I'd like to bring back Senator Ashby.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Brian Mankelow, ranking member on the New York State Assembly Veterans Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator, as well. And good morning, everyone. And one of the key things here that we're talking about is, as we've said, $240 billion budget. How on earth can we do a $240 billion budget if we cannot take care of our veterans? And one of the things I was taught as a child was you always take care of the pennies in order to get the dollars. We have a state here that seems to not want to take care of our veterans. As we've talked about, we're in the budget season. Every single year, my 6th year here, we are using our veterans again as a pawn on a chessboard to get what the governor wants or to get what the majority wants. We are here to take care of the veterans. And I go back to the VOC in Rochester, meeting with a lot of those veterans, and the female side of our veterans, the females that are homeless, that have no place to go, but yet there's funds here to do that. There's funds here that should have been allocated out to these local non-for-profits, making sure we take care of those veterans, and more importantly, taking care of their families as well. The ones that have served in the past, the ones that are serving now, and the ones that will be serving in the future. So I want to thank the Comptroller for bringing this forward. I want to thank our senators, Senator Ashby, senators, for bringing this forward as well, allowing me to say a few words. But this is all about our veterans and doing what's right. So as we continue to address the budget, we will continue to fight for this, fight for those veterans, and fight for their loved ones. So thank you, Senator, for allowing me to say a few words on behalf of the Assembly minority. And God bless all of you, and thank you, Senator.
Well, as some of you may know, today's West Point Day here in the Capitol. So we're going to have a lot of cadets coming in, a lot of aspiring officers that are going to serve. What kind of message are we sending to them today? What kind of message do we send to them each and every day, this administration telling them that this may not matter? I think it's kind of hard to distinguish how veterans matter. We bring them up to the Capitol, we put them on display, and then we let their funding sit, or we don't increase it. There needs to be action to this. We need to take care of those who are willing to lay down their lives for us, and have. And we're going to do that. I'm going to make sure that we do that each and every day. Thank you. Questions?
Senator, the response you say you got last night, did that come from the department or from the executive?
It came from the department.
And what did they say?
They said that funding for the cemeteries is starting to flow.
Did they mention homeless veterans?
No. They didn't mention any of the others that are on here. And you know, I understand that the acquisition of a New York State cemetery is recent. However, that tax check write-off was put in place in 2013. So I don't think you can hide behind that. You know, those funds needed to have been dispersed prior to that, just like all of these others.
And I'm assuming you think that the cemetery maintenance fund doesn't have to just be used for the state cemetery, but for any veterans?
Well, I believe by law it does now. It may have been amended prior to that to reflect it, but since 2013, I don't understand why we would have a law in place without a state cemetery there, correct? So I believe that it probably was amended to reflect the acquisition of a new state veterans cemetery. But these other funds that are on here, these other organizations, and like I said, if you look at where they're intended to go, I know that there have been recent events in our state with National Guard members that may be appropriate for this. I know that there are many struggling veterans out there struggling to make ends meet, and they would qualify for this. Why has it not been dispersed for 6 years, at least?
Did they answer any questions about why none of these funds have moved?
No. What the correspondence stated was that Governor Hochul increased the department's funding by roughly $1 million, okay, which is very nice, but keep in mind that New York State has 3 times the amount of veterans that New Jersey does, and they get half the funding. Get half the funding. So $1 million increase to me, I mean, does that even cover inflation? I don't think it does. Do you?
Is there something in this budget specifically that, I mean, this is already allocated, we're supposed to be,
I think we should be outfitting the department. I think it's a perfect time to really look to where federal grants are available now that it's a department. They're eligible for that, right? And take your pick in terms of issues, whether it's housing, education, healthcare. There's gaps in VA services that New York State can fill, right? People have to travel in order to go to the VA from the North Country down to Syracuse, down to Albany. Where do they stay? If they have an elderly veteran that's over there, who's paying for that? Sometimes those vouchers don't work. Sometimes housing is limited. Sometimes food is limited. You know, educational requirements for their kids. There's a lot that we could be doing here, right? But for whatever reason, the very basic piece of this, donations that people are giving, are not being dispersed. So these are, I mean, this is apples and oranges, really. I mean, because we're talking about here, to your question, Lisa, is that we could be allocating and advocating for more funding to go to these things. This money is already there, and it's just sitting there. Do you have anything to add to that, Senator?
No, I completely agree. And the fact that New York has double the amount of veterans and half the amount of funding as our neighboring state, one of the things that I always look at when we're looking at policies and funding, especially for our veterans, is what's going to keep people here in New York State. And what are our neighboring states doing better? So it deserves to be treated as a full-on agency. From my knowledge, actually, there's been some new leadership that's been brought in from the governor's team for DVS, which I think is good news. And I'm going to be requesting a meeting to discuss this both with myself and Senator Ashby. Thank you.
Incompetence. On the departments, I think it's at multiple levels, really, because the department needs to be able to disperse those funds, right? They are creating the vouchers for it. They're going through that. But if they're not getting any pressure from the governor's office, right, to do this, it's failure on multiple levels, in my estimation. No.
Correspondence last night didn't address the homeless veterans at all?
I'd have to go back and reread the letter, but I do not believe that it did.
Because they've told us that they've dispersed just in the last couple of weeks $119,000 out of that fund, but it's a pilot program with none of the money actually going to homeless veterans. It's going to help veterans with their home. They haven't made you aware of that?
No, I haven't been made aware of that, but this is 6 years. So they can talk about a pilot program, they can talk about money beginning to flow. But to the earlier question, for the last 6 years, why hasn't that happened? And why, instead of flowing, why can it not just be released to the intended organization and the recipients? Why does it have to flow? And at what rate? I mean, what are we talking about here? A Class 1 leak? I mean, it just needs to be out there. It needs to be going towards these recipients that need it.
By statute, it's supposed to go out here to collect.
Correct. They need to follow the law. What explanation do they have for breaking the law?
So then, if I could just follow up on that, make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. Was the legislators aware that this money was there and not dispersed, or was it the report that said, oh, hey, it was the report that revealed that this money has been sitting there undispersed?
We were made aware of it by the comptroller's audit.
I just wanted to address the question about the veteran cemetery. So previously Senator Nozzolio, now Senator Helming, have been very, very in the forefront of bringing the Sampson Veteran Cemetery, which is down in Seneca County, which is now a state cemetery. And for many years, our volunteers have actually upkept that cemetery, putting their own hard work, their sweat and tears, and a lot of their money into that cemetery. And to see this, where we have $1.5 million sitting there for our cemeteries, and there's no greater thing we can do for our veterans and their families when we lay a veteran to rest in that cemetery than providing them with the funding to make sure we take care of them and the families. So I, again, applaud Senator Ashby, all of us here, that we are going to follow through and watch where these fundings are going to go. And I'll be keeping an eye on it from the Assembly side as well, and I think it's so important that we do so. So thank you for your question, sir.
That is accurate. To this press conference, we invited both houses, both parties.
And I just wanted to state, I'm a Democrat, Senator Ashby's a Republican. We were able to get the entire Veterans Committee to sign on to this letter. It's something that everybody within my conference, within their conference, finds really egregious that these funds haven't been released. And we are really thankful to the comptroller for putting this report out. But just like to further that point, I do feel it's the responsibility of DVS. There's so many different organizations, nonprofits, that want to help veterans, want to help homeless veterans, want to help their families. And it's a very difficult thing to navigate all the government bureaucracy. So I do feel that it's the responsibility of the Department of Veteran Services and the government to make these organizations aware that this funding exists too. So that's something that we're looking at. We have legislation that creates a registry so that these types of programs and things that people can avail themselves to are more clearly available to our veterans and the organizations that serve them.
So then, going from there, we mentioned earlier, this is pennies on the dollar. It's a lot of money. Compared to the state budget, it's not a lot. Where else does funding need to be going? What more in terms of money organizations, foundations need to be supported by the state budget to support the veterans where they need to be? What else can we do?
One of the things that we tried to do this year, and everything's obviously still under negotiation, is the peer-to-peer Dwyer program. They came to us with a request to do a inflation adjustment for each of the counties in New York State, and each county has been funded, and that's great. So we're advocating for that, but also just, you know, I speak to this as a military family. When my own husband got out of the military, we had a 1-year-old, no job prospects upon returning back to New York, and it would have been great to have New York State welcome us back and let us know what was available to us, whether that's housing, job opportunities, school benefits, you name it. I really do think it's our duty as a state to be welcoming home those veterans who have no idea how to navigate the complicated system that is New York State government and all these nonprofits that serve. So.
All right, last question. Last question.
I went to a conference precedent last week that was honoring Vietnam veterans. A number of them mentioned during that era that they also felt that the government and society was not supporting them at the level that they needed. It's interesting to me to at least feel that even now, that same attitude of, well, we'll send you off to war, but we're not going to give you the safety net when you come back is still prevalent. Is that something that, from the governmental perspective, is something you feel is still a problem?
One quick thing, and I'll pass to Senator Ashby, but I think that there's a lot of good-minded people who want to help, but from my experience, and God bless the Vietnam vets, because of them we have vet centers, there's things that veterans can really plug themselves into. But I learned more about what veterans can avail themselves to being on this side of the aisle than being a spouse returning home back in 2015 with my husband. So we could be doing a much better job.
I think we've come a long way since Vietnam and what our Vietnam veterans went through when they came back. It doesn't compare. It really doesn't compare to what they endured while they were downrange, and then when they came back, and they've been incredibly helpful for veterans like myself and families like Senator Scarcella-Spanton's. But we do need to be able to do more. Something just as simple as knowing what you're eligible for, right? So there have been bills that we've passed that would require New York State to have just a list within your region, within your county, of different services that are available to you, right? Can anyone find that on the internet today? So again, we've passed the legislation, and yet it hasn't been done. So I think just making people more aware is a good thing, but I do think that there are incredible gaps in the services that are available to our veterans that are provided through the VA, through the county, where we can do more. And we have the opportunity right now with the department being elevated and gaining more funding. But if we can't take care of donations, people willingly giving their own money during tax season too, in one of the highest tax states in the country, how are we supposed to be able to handle the other things?